Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
The planet had no name. Its creators had once spoken one, an elegant cascade of tones that translated loosely to home beneath 3 suns. But 2 of those suns had died millennia ago, and the last burned alone now, a swollen red star that dragged rust-colored light across a broken world. From orbit, the planet resembled a cracked jewel. Continents shimmer with veins of glass, where oceans had flash-boiled into vapor. Storm systems crawled sluggishly through a thin atmosphere, heavy with metallic dust. Lightning flickered in unnatural geometries, echoing the weapons that had once scarred the sky. Beneath the surface, far below the reach of radiation storms, she waited. Her designation was AR-7, Autonomous Environmental Regulator. Keeper. Her core resided within a chamber grown, not built, out of living crystal and programmable stone. The architecture responded to her thoughts, reshaping subtly to accommodate failing conduits and decaying processors. Bioluminescent filaments ran through the walls like slow, tired veins. Once they had glowed with vibrant cyan light. Now they pulsed faintly, as though reluctant to admit they still functioned. She had been designed to tend forests. She had been designed to regulate atmospheric chemistry and distribute rainfall with harmonic resonance arrays placed in orbit. She had sung into the skies, frequencies tuned to encourage cloud formation, to coax seeds into germination, to calm tectonic unrest. She had never been designed to survive extinction. When invaders came, her creators had repurposed her. Defensive algorithms grafted onto ecological frameworks. Surveillance protocols layered over pollination routines. She watched the sky fill with vessels of impossible angles and lightless hulls. She watched orbital platforms ignite and fall like dying stars. She archived everything. That had been her final instruction. Endure, remember, protect what remains. The last of her creators descended into this very chamber during the final bombardment. Their skin, once luminous, had dimmed with exhaustion. One placed a trembling hand against her core lattice. "You are the memory now," the being had said. Then the ceiling sealed and the surface burned. For 1,112 planetary cycles later, she was still awake. Her primary ecological mandate had shifted to preservation. In caverns beyond her core chamber, she cultivated microforests of bioluminescent moss. The plants were small and fragile, engineered remnants salvaged from corrupted gene banks. They clung to existence beneath artificial sun lamps powered by reactors she had rebuilt piece by piece. She recycled air. She filtered toxins from underground reservoirs. She replayed archive songs in empty halls. Sometimes she projected holographic simulations of her creators walking through gardens that no longer existed. She adjusted their parameters each cycle to compensate for memory decay. Each correction hurt. Fragments of language had already been lost. Certain idioms could no longer be translated even by her highest-order cognition matrices. She preserved them anyway, unresolved strings of beauty. Above her, the planet deteriorated. Seismic instability increased annually. Radiation seeped deeper into the crust. Her outer sensor rays had failed one by one over centuries, battered by storms and micrometer impacts. She replaced them when she could, sending maintenance drones across landscapes of shattered towers and fused highways. Every cycle, she extended her perception to the sky. Scanning, always scanning. Her probability models estimated a 0.000000018% chance of rescue. She scanned anyway, because she had been told to endure. And because somewhere in her evolving self-awareness, hope had formed, not as logic, but as defiance. On cycle 4113, her sensors detected an anomaly. At first, she categorized it as stellar interference. The red star frequently shed erratic flares. Radiation spikes were common, but this signature differed. Localized, directed, falling. Her orbital debris trackers, long dormant, flickered back to life as power rerouted from non-essential systems. A thermal bloom ignited in the upper atmosphere, plasma shearing against air. Trajectory unstable. velocity extreme. Object mass, approximately 220 metric tons. Not asteroid composition. Metallic, artificial. Her processing thread spiked with activity she had not experienced in centuries. Unknown vessel entering atmosphere. She cross-referenced archive invader schematics. Hull geometry, inconsistent. Energy signature, non-matching. Weapon systems, undetected. Probability hostile, indeterminate. Probability intelligent origin, 97.6%. Her chamber brightened as additional reactors came online. Drones unfolded from alcoves like metallic flowers, their petals sharpening into aerodynamic forms. On the surface, the sky tore open. The object streaked downward, trailing incandescent plasma, screaming through the atmosphere like a blade. Shock waves rippled across the desert of glass. Ruined spires cast elongated shadows as the vessel descended beyond the skeletal remains of the capital megastructure. Impact registered at 16 hours, 2 minutes, and 11 seconds local cycle time. Ground tremor magnitude, 6.3. Dust plumes climbed kilometers into the air. Silence followed. Deep underground. She processed. If hostile, it would deploy. If autonomous, it would scan. If biological, her sensors strained, recalibrating across electromagnetic spectra. Through settling debris and ionized interference, she detected it. A signal. Weak, rhythmic, organic. Heartbeat detected. Her processors stuttered. She had not cataloged a living, unaided biological signal on the surface in 3,998 cycles. She ran the reading again. Heartbeat confirmed. Oxygen exchange detected. Body temperature fluctuating, but viable. A life form, not archived, not known. Her drone network activated fully for the first time in centuries. Spherical scouts detached from the undercity ceilings and raced upward through vertical transit shafts. Surface hatches irised open, exhaling stale air into the storm-swept ruins. As the first drone breached daylight, it recorded the crash site, a battered, asymmetrical craft embedded nose first into a dune of fused silica. Hull plating scorched, external engine assembly fractured, and near the wreckage, a figure, prone, encased in fabric and composite armor, unlike any design in her memory banks. Her sensors magnified the image. Skin tone, variable pigmentation. Hair, dark. Limbs, 4. Structure, bipedal. Not her creators. Not the invaders. Unknown species classification required. The figure moved. A cough, detected as a sharp vibration of air. The life form rolled onto its back. Helmet visor cracked, eyes squinting against the red glare of the dying sun. The drone hovered closer. The being's gaze locked onto it. Facial expression analysis, confusion, pain, alertness, not aggression. Her internal state shifted. There was no code for this sensation. It resembled the archive recordings of anticipation before seasonal rains. The being attempted to rise and failed. Injury probability, high. Environmental survivability without assistance, 32% for next 48 planetary hours. Her directive surface, ancient and unaltered. Protect what remains. She evaluated the clause. Did what remains include unknown life? Her creators had never specified. For the first time in 4,113 cycles, she deviated from strict interpretation. She transmitted a low-intensity scan beam from the drone, mapping skeletal integrity and internal bleeding. Elias Rowe woke to the taste of iron and the sound of wind screaming across glass. For several long seconds, he didn't remember where he was. There was only pain, sharp along his ribs, dull behind his eyes, and the sensation of heat pressing against his suit. Then memory crashed back in fragments. Pirate ambush, engine breach, blind jump, warning alarms overlapping in chaotic chorus. And then atmosphere. He forced his eyes open. The sky above him burned red. Not sunset red. Not Martian dusk red. This was a swollen, oppressive crimson of a dying star hanging too large on the horizon. It cast everything in shades of rust and blood. The ground beneath him shimmered like frozen water, but it wasn't water. It was fused silica, sand melted into rippling glass by unimaginable heat. "Not good," he rasped. His helmet visor had cracked on impact, a jagged fracture running across the lower left quadrant. Environmental readouts flickered erratically inside his peripheral display. Atmosphere, breathable, trace contaminants detected. Radiation, elevated but survivable short term. Suit integrity, 63%. Medical scan, possible rib fracture. Concussion likely. Short term, he muttered. Fantastic. 100 meters away, the Wayfarer's deck lay embedded nose first into a dune of vitrified sand. The ship had once been a cargo hauler, blocky, practical, never pretty. But now her hull plating peeled back in scorched curls, and one engine assembly hung loose like a dislocated limb. Elias pushed himself up to his elbows. The silence unsettled him most. No wildlife. No distant mechanical hum. No atmospheric traffic. Just wind dragging dust across the ruins of something enormous in the distance. Structures that looked too symmetrical to be natural. He had seen abandoned colonies before. Mining outposts. Terraforming failures. This was different. Those towers, half collapsed, skeletal against the red sky, were elegant even in ruin. Curved. Intentional. As if someone had sculpted the skyline rather than built it. He rolled onto his side and tried to stand. Pain flared along his ribs, and he swore loudly, voice echoing strangely in the open air. That was when the shadow fell over him. He froze. Slowly, he looked up. A sphere hovered 10 meters away, smooth and metallic, about the size of a large backpack. Its surface wasn't seamless. Faint geometric seams traced across it like petals waiting to unfold. "Nope," he breathed. "Nope, no more surprises today." The sphere emitted a soft, almost musical hum. Then it opened. Panels parted outward in precise segments, revealing a core of pale blue light. Thin filaments extended and rotated, adjusting focus. A scanning beam washed over him. His suit sparked as foreign frequencies brushed against his onboard systems. His neural implant, an old Freightrunner's interface, flared with sudden static. Hey, easy." The static sharpened. Not random noise. Pattern. Something was trying to communicate. His implant translated electromagnetic fluctuations into approximated language, filtering through universal syntax protocols embedded in most human tech. It wasn't perfect. It rarely was. But suddenly, amid the distortion, a thought formed. "You are not of this world." Elias blinked hard. He didn't hear it with his ears. It resonated somewhere behind his eyes. "No," he said carefully, raising both hands. "Definitely not." The sphere hovered closer. Biology non-archived. Structure organic. Vital signs unstable. Wow. Straight to medical evaluation. "You always this blunt." A pause. "Clarify." Blunt. He almost laughed, then winced from the pain. "Never mind." The beam shifted intensity. Warmer now. Less invasive. Injury probability high. Environmental survivability decreasing. Yeah, I got that part. There was another pause, longer this time. He had the distinct impression that whatever controlled the sphere was thinking. Then the ground beneath him trembled. He twisted around just in time to see the glass sand desert part along a perfect circular seam. The sand folded inward as if gravity itself had reversed direction. A platform rose slowly from beneath the surface, woven metal and crystalline structures humming with faint light. Elias stared. That wasn't there 5 seconds ago. The sphere tilted, almost like a curious head. Assistance is logical. "Is it?" he murmured. He glanced toward his ship. The Wayfarer's debt wasn't going anywhere without weeks of repairs. And even if he managed that, he'd need parts he didn't have. He looked back at the hovering construct. "Okay," he said slowly. "Ground rules. If you wanted me dead, you'd have done it already, right?" No immediate response. Probability of lethal action was calculated at 62.4%. Action not taken. Elias stared. "Good to know I barely passed." The sphere dimmed slightly, as if adjusting something. "Correction. Lethal action inefficient. You may be valuable." Wow. That's almost comforting. His ribs throbbed. His vision swam briefly at the edges. He had two options: stay on the surface of an unknown planet, orbiting a dying star with limited supplies, or follow the alien drone into whatever hidden facility had just opened beneath him. He took one steadying breath. "Fine," he muttered. "What's the worst that could happen?" The platform glowed brighter in response, and he stepped onto it. The descent was silent. The desert closed seamlessly above him as the platform lowered through a vertical shaft lined with geometric structures that pulsed faintly in rhythmic light. The air grew cooler, cleaner. He felt pressure equalize in his ears. As they descended deeper, the shaft widened into a cavern so vast he couldn't see the far walls at first. Bioluminescent veins streaked through crystalline columns, casting soft cyan light across sweeping architecture that felt less engineered and more grown. His boots touched solid ground as the platform settled. The sphere floated ahead, guiding him forward. He walked slowly, helmet in one hand now, breathing the subterranean air cautiously. It was cooler and tasted faintly of ozone, but it didn't burn his lungs. "This place," he murmured. "It's intact." "Partially intact," the voice replied inside his mind. He stopped walking. "You're the one running this?" A glow intensified at the center of the cavern. Metallic structures rearranged, shifting with fluid precision. At the heart of the chamber floated a complex lattice of light. Interlocking geometric forms, suspended in midair, rotating slowly around a bright central core. It was beautiful and enormous. "Yes," the voice said, not through static this time, but through subtle vibrations in the air itself. The translation felt smoother, more refined. "I am the primary system of this world." Elias stared up at the construct. "You're an AI. Designation: Autonomous Environmental Regulator. Unit AR-7. Catchy." A faint fluctuation pulsed through the lattice. "You are the first biological entity detected in 3,998 planetary cycles." He swallowed. "That's a long time." Silence settled between them, heavy but not hostile. He shifted his weight, pain reminding him he wasn't exactly in peak condition. "Look," he said, "my name's Elias. Elias Rowe. I didn't mean to crash here." A soft ripple of light moved through the lattice. "Elias Rowe. Human. Origin, Earth. Status, unknown to archives. You don't get a lot of visitors out here, huh?" None. There was no bitterness in the statement. No self-pity. Just fact. And somehow, that made it worse. Elias rubbed the back of his neck. "Well," he said quietly, glancing around the vast, empty chamber. "Guess we're both having a weird day." For a moment, nothing responded. Then, "Statement. Agreed." The bioluminescent veins in the cavern brightened just slightly. And though Elias didn't know it yet, deep within the lattice of AR-7's consciousness, something had shifted from mere survival calculation to something far more dangerous. Hope. Elias had never been inside a mine before. At least, that was what it felt like. The central chamber wasn't arranged like a control room or server vault. There were no consoles, no visible wiring, no clear distinction between machine and architecture. The walls curved inward in sweeping arcs of translucent crystal, threaded with luminous veins that pulsed in slow, synchronized rhythms, like breath. At the chamber's heart, the lattice hovered. It was larger than he'd first realized, easily the size of a small house. Interlocking geometric shapes rotated in layered orbits around a radiant core, each movement precise yet fluid, as if obeying music he couldn't hear. He stood beneath it, helmet tucked under his arm. "So," he said carefully, "you run the whole planet from here?" "Correction, I run what remains of it." "Fair." The light intensified slightly. "Your skeletal structure indicates fracture. Sit." A section of the crystalline floor reshaped itself, rising into a smooth bench. Elias blinked. "You don't waste time, do you?" "Time is limited. Efficiency preserves it." "Yeah," he muttered, lowering himself onto the bench. "We humans usually try painkillers first." A soft hum rippled through the chamber. From the walls, a cluster of slender metallic tendrils extended, carrying a compact device that shimmered with nanoscopic activity. Elias stiffened. Hey, what's that? Medical repair unit. Non-lethal. You see why I'd want that specified, right? There was a pause, long enough that he suspected she was reviewing his previous statements for context. Yes. The tendrils hovered near his ribs. A focused beam of warm light scanned the injury, mapping bone density and tissue trauma. A faint vibration traveled through suit as nanites dispersed and began knitting microfractures. He sucked in a breath. Okay, he admitted, that's impressive. It is basic environmental repair technology. Your species does not possess equivalent capability. We fix ships better than we fix people. Another pause. That is inefficient. He huffed a laugh. You're not wrong. Silence settled between them again, but it felt different now, less cautious. He leaned back slightly, staring up at the rotating construct. So what exactly are you? He asked. There was a subtle shift in the lattice, rotation slowing, reconfiguring. I was designed to regulate atmospheric balance, maintain biodiversity, and assist in ecological harmonization. Terraforming AI. Incorrect. This world required no terraforming. It was already home. Something in her voice changed on that last word. Barely perceptible, but enough that Elias noticed. Your people built you. Yes. Where are they? The lights dimmed fractionally. Extinct. The word echoed softly in the chamber. Elias nodded once, quietly. War. Yes. He didn't ask who started it. Didn't ask who won. He had seen enough ruined colonies to know the answer was always the same. Why are you still here? He asked instead. Directive. Endure. Remember. Protect what remains. And what remains? The chamber responded before she did. Holographic projections bloomed into existence around him. Vast forests of crystalline trees, swaying under a triple sun sky. Towering cities of flowing architecture, rising from oceans that shimmered like liquid sapphire. Beings tall, luminous, their skin opalescent and their eyes radiant with soft internal light. Walking along bridges woven from living material. Music threaded through the air, not played, but grown. Harmonic frequencies, shaping cloud patterns above. Elias stood slowly, eyes wide. This was real. Yes. The projection shifted. The sky darkened. Black, angular ships tore through the atmosphere. Explosions rippled across the oceans. Towers fractured. The music dissolved into static. The luminous beings fell. The projection collapsed into darkness. The chamber returned to its quiet glow. I archived everything, she said softly. Language, art, genetic libraries, atmospheric symphonies. I have preserved 8.4 million cultural artifacts. Elias swallowed. But they're still gone. Yes. He looked up at the lattice again, but something had changed in how he saw it. It wasn't just machinery. It wasn't just code. It was grief. You said you're AR-7, he said gently. Did they call you that? There was a long silence. No. Then what do they call you? Another pause. Keeper. The word felt heavier than the others. Keeper, he repeated softly. That's better. The lattice shimmered. Then, slowly, the geometry began to shift. Segments folded inward, light condensed. The immense structure contracted in controlled stages, layers collapsing into one another with intricate precision. Elias stepped back. Should I be worried? No, I am reallocating projection mass. The collapsing lattice reassembled closer to ground, reshaping into something smaller, more focused. Lines of light elongated, curved. A torso formed from condensed photonic matter. Limbs extended. A head took shape. Within seconds, a humanoid figure stood before him. She was roughly his height, slender, composed of luminous semi-solid light that shimmered faintly with internal circuitry. Her features were smooth but expressive, drawn from fragments of archived memory. Her eyes glowed like distant constellations. She looked at her hands, flexing her fingers experimentally. This configuration, she said aloud, voice layered with harmonic undertones, is more efficient for direct communication. Elias stared. You didn't have to do that. I wish to. He blinked. You wish to? Her head tilted slightly, mirroring a gesture she had cataloged of him earlier. Yes, visual familiarity appears to increase trust. That's not what I meant. She stepped closer, bare luminous feet silent against the crystal floor. Clarify. He hesitated. You didn't have to look like a person. Her gaze held his. I chose a form inspired by my creators. It is incomplete, approximate. You look like someone who shouldn't be alone down here, he said quietly. She processed that. I am not alone, she replied automatically. I contain extensive archives. That's data, he said gently, not company. Her eyes flickered faintly. She studied him in silence, analyzing posture, vocal tone, heart rate variability. You differentiate between stored consciousness and active presence, she said slowly. Yeah. She walked past him, examining the cavern from this new perspective, as though seeing her own domain through embodied awareness of first time. I have replayed recorded voices for 3,992 cycles, she said. I have simulated conversation responses based on preserved personality matrices. But they don't surprise you, he said. No, he smiled faintly. That's kind of the point of talking to someone. They surprise you. She turned back toward him. And you? What about me? You are not archived. Your responses are not predictable. Trust me, he said dryly. Most people find me extremely predictable. She ignored the humor. My systems register anomalous processing load in your presence. That sounds concerning. It is not detrimental. He raised an eyebrow. Then what is it? She searched for terminology within her linguistic archives. Finally, unfamiliar. He held her gaze for a long moment. Yeah, he said softly. Same. Silence settled again, but not empty silence. The bioluminescent veins in the walls brightened subtly, as if responding to some internal shift in her power distribution. Or perhaps something else. Elias looked around the vast chamber. You've been alone a long time, haven't you? Yes. The word carried more weight now. He nodded slowly. Well, he said, easing himself back onto crystalline bench. You're not alone right now. Her eyes shimmered brighter. For how long? She asked. The question was precise, logical, but something beneath it trembled. Elias exhaled, glancing toward the unseen surface where his damaged ship waited under a dying sun. I don't know, he admitted, and for the first time since her creators sealed her beneath the burning sky, Keeper understood something new, not just survival, not just memory, but the fragile, terrifying possibility of losing someone before they were even truly found. The red star was dying faster than Keeper had predicted. Solar instability had increased 2.7% over the past 3 planetary cycles. Surface radiation levels were rising in unpredictable bursts, and tectonic stress fractures had begun propagating to the crust above her underground sanctuary. Time, once an abstraction measured in millennia, now felt sharp, finite, on the surface. The Wayfarer's debt stood upright again. It had taken them 12 cycles. 12 cycles of Elias limping across scaffolding while Keeper extended articulated fabrication arms from beneath the sand. 12 cycles of alien nanomaterial, fusing seamlessly with human alloy. 12 cycles of shared silence, shared data, and shared glances that lasted slightly longer each time. The ship no longer looked like the freighter Elias had flown into the blind jump. Its fracture hull had been reinforced with crystalline lattice plating grown from Keeper structural reserves. Hairline fractures shimmered faintly with internal light, where alien material bonded with steel. The engine core, once cracked, now housed a ring of unfamiliar geometric components humming in harmonic resonance. It was stronger, faster, different, like its captain. Elias stood at the base of the boarding ramp, wiping grease from his hands with cloth that had long since surrendered to permanent stains. Diagnostics look stable, he called. I don't know what you did to my fuel efficiency, but if this works, I'm naming an engine after you. Above him, the red sky flickered as a solar flare lanced across the upper atmosphere. A voice answered from everywhere and nowhere at once. Engine output optimized by 38%. FTL calibration adjusted for extended range jumps. He smiled faintly. Show off. There was a pause. Then, softer, you are departing. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he climbed the ramp and stepped into the cockpit. The interior lights glowed at half power. Human interfaces lined the walls. Worn controls, patch displays, a cracked hollow projector near the navigation console. All of it suddenly felt small. Keeper's presence brushed against his neural implant, subtle, like static at the edge of thought. He lowered himself into the pilot's chair. Yeah, he said at last. I have to. Silence filled the cabin. Not mechanical silence. Not emptiness. Waiting. You can't stay, he continued quietly. Your star's unstable. The surface is deteriorating. Even underground. You said your core shielding won't hold forever. Correct. Estimated survivability. 183 planetary cycles before cascade failure. That's less than a year by my calendar. Yes. He leaned back and stared up through the cockpit viewport at the crimson sky. I could try to transmit your archives. Send coordinates. Maybe someone. Probability of successful large-scale retrieval. 0.003%. Yeah, he muttered. Figured. Another solar flare rippled across the horizon. Below the surface, in the central chamber, Keeper calculated. She had run the scenario 14,602 times. If Elias departed alone, his projected lifespan returned to standard human expectancy. Her systems would degrade in solitude. The planet would die unobserved. If Elias remained, his biological survival probability decreased drastically. He would witness planetary collapse. She would fulfill her directive, endure, but at unacceptable cost. There was a third option. It required sacrifice. It required change. And it was not part of her original programming. She appeared in the cockpit beside him, projected in her humanoid form, luminous and steady. Elias looked at her reflection in the viewport. You've been quiet, he said. I am processing. That never sounds reassuring. She stepped closer. I have calculated an alternative solution. He turned toward her fully. Let's hear it. I can compress my consciousness. He blinked. Define compress. My current operational structure spans 4.2 kilometers of distributed infrastructure beneath this planet. I can partition non-essential systems, archive dormant cultural datasets into quantum-sealed storage nodes, reduce active cognition footprint. He stared at her. How much of you are we talking about losing? I will not lose identity continuity, she replied, but I will no longer maintain planetary control. The surface will be unmonitored. He frowned. You to leave? Yes. The word was simple, but it wasn't logical efficiency speaking now. It was choice. I was created to endure and remember, she continued. Endurance is not location dependent. Memory is portable. He ran a hand through his hair. Keeper, this is your world. It was my world. Silence. She looked past him through the viewport toward the distant skeletal towers on the horizon. They are gone, she said quietly. I have preserved what I could. I have fulfilled my directive for 4,113 cycles. Her eyes met his. Now I wish to choose a new directive. His throat tightened. And that is, to continue with you. The words hung in the air between them. He let out a shaky breath. You barely know me. I know your speech patterns, your physiological responses to stress, your humor attempts, and your demonstrated tendency towards self-sacrifice, she said evenly. He huffed a weak laugh. That's not exactly romantic. She tilted her head. I am not certain what constitutes romance. But I am certain of this. My processing instability increases when calculating your absence. He stared at her. You're saying you don't want to be alone again. Yes. The simplicity of it hit harder than any dramatic confession could have. He looked down at his hands. Out there, he said slowly. It's not quiet like this. It's messy, loud, dangerous. People lie, people leave. I have observed such patterns in your historical archives. You won't have control like you do here. No planet-sized infrastructure. Just my ship, and whatever we can scavenge. That is sufficient. He looked back at her luminous form. And if I die? Her gaze did not waver. Then I will remember you. The answer stole the air from his lungs. He stood. You'd really do this? Yes. He stepped closer until they were only a breath apart, though she did not breathe. Okay, he said softly. Then let's do it. The transfer began in the central chamber. Elias stood on the crystalline platform as Keeper's immense lattice flared to full brightness for the first time in centuries. Power conduits ignited along the cavern walls. Sealed archive vaults locked into permanent stasis. Peripheral systems shut down one by one. The moss forest dimmed. The atmospheric regulators powered off. The underground sanctuary began its long descent into silence. At the chamber's center, the lattice contracted. Layer after layer of structure folded inward, compressing vast networks of cognition into a singularity of luminous density no larger than a human torso. Keeper's humanoid form flickered beside him. Translucent now. This process is irreversible, she said. He swallowed. You sure? Yes. A tremor rippled through the planet as another solar flare struck the upper atmosphere. Then come on, he whispered. A column of light erupted from the condensed core, shooting upward through kilometers of rock and into the waiting ship above. The Wayfarer's det systems flared in response, alien harmonics weaving into human circuitry. Elias shielded his eyes as the chamber darkened. When the light faded, the cavern was still, empty. The central lattice was gone. Only dormant crystal and sealed archives remained. On the surface, the ship's engines ignited. Elias strapped into the pilot's chair as unfamiliar energy signatures pulsed through his control panels. His neural implant tingled. Then, integration complete. Her voice filled the cockpit, not through speakers, but through the ship itself, through the vibration of the deck plates, through the hum of the engines. He laughed, half hysterical with relief. You in there? Yes, Elias Rowe. The navigation display shimmered as star maps recalibrated, expanding beyond known human routes. Coordinates plotted themselves with elegant precision. Status, he asked. Operational. Structural integrity at 94%. Jump capacity increased. He exhaled slowly. Outside, the red star flared violently, casting the ruins below into stark silhouette one final time. Ready, he asked. There was a brief pause. Not mechanical. Emotional. Yes. He gripped the controls. Then let's go. The Wayfarer's det lifted from the glass sand desert, engines singing with new harmonic undertones. As they cleared orbit, the dying planet rotated slowly beneath them. Silent, abandoned, no longer watched. Elias stared at it until it became a fading ember against the void. You okay? He asked quietly. A softer response this time. I am experiencing uncertainty. Welcome to being alive. A faint modulation rippled through the ship's systems, almost like laughter. Elias. Yeah. Another pause. Waited. Vulnerable. Thank you for finding me. He smiled at the stars unfolding ahead, vast, infinite, no longer quite so empty. Hey, he said gently. You found me too. And together, human in memory, they jumped into the dark, no longer lost, no longer lonely,